John Henry, great businessman, John. Thank you very much. Great businessman.
Ozwrld! La 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 la. Ozwrld! La 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 la.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a special Football Talk podcast episode. My name is Ozzie, and I'm your host for this evening. Before I start, as you can see on my screen, John Henry has lit up a cigar. So on this channel, we smoke shisha. So I'm going to have a quick smoke, and we're going to crack on and talk about Florian Wirtz. There you go. Let's do the customary now. So for me, very unexpected that this signing just happened now because I had a show scheduled where I was going to talk about Malik Fofana and see how he would fit in the squad. That show will be done tomorrow now, but wow, what a bomber that we saw today. Let me bring it up on the screen so we can enjoy, the tweet that was published by Fabrizio Romano. Of course, I'm sure you guys have seen it. If you haven't, then let me read it out loud for you guys. Let me share the screen with you guys. Here we go. So here you go. So this is the tweet. And the tweet is from Fabrizio Romano. Of course, exclusive Florian Wirtz to Liverpool. Here we go. Liverpool verbally agree deal in principle with Bayer Leverkusen for package reaching 150 million euros, which in pounds is 126 million, with add-ons included. Player side already agreed 2 weeks ago with move now imminent. Wirtz set for medical and contract signing. Now, this is music to our ears. And I know a lot of fans were getting a little bit nervous about the news because we didn't really hear anything. We were, hearing Biz getting rejected. So, with us Liverpool fans, we do have that PTSD where we've unfortunately not had certain deals go through the line. But things have changed. We have finally secured a marquee signing, a signing that we've been wanting for a very, very long time. So it looks like Florian Wirtz is on the verge of joining Liverpool Football Club. Just got a comment here from Graham Rogers. He said, "This is definite in the question mark. It's as official as it can get before the club announce it." So, Fabrizio Romano is regarded as one of the most reliable journalists in world football. So I think it's safe to say that, Florian Wirtz is a Liverpool player, of course, pending a medical and all that sort of stuff. But that sort of thing is just a formality. So I believe that we will be signing Florian Wirtz very, very soon. Um, got another comment here from Burton Jab. He says, "I love Alvarez to Liverpool. Sell Jota, Darwin. Well done, Wirtz to Liverpool." Big up yourself, Burton Jab. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in. And your first part of that comment, I would love to see Alvarez as well. Hopefully, we've still got money, in the tank to make another big offer. Whether that happens or not, it remains to be seen. But tonight, we'll enjoy this news more than anything else. We don't get this sort of breaking news or this type of magnitude of a transfer when it comes to Liverpool. So this is definitely a celebrational type of episode. Now, I'm excited about this player. As you probably guys know, I've been talking about Verts for a few weeks now, and what's funny about this deal is that rival fans are trying to justify that, you guys have overpaid or he's not worth the money that you're paying. Let's backtrack to about 2 months ago. Man City fans were labeling this player as the next Kevin De Bruyne, the one that's going to be the successor in that team. But all of a sudden now, because they've lost a player from Liverpool's hands, not just Man City to be fair, it's Bayern Munich as well. At, in Germany, it's customary for a top player to move on to Bayern Munich. We've broken that tradition now. We've literally come in and hijacked the deal. And look, we've definitely upset a few people in Germany, to say the least, and we've upset Man City fans as well. But look, rivals will always say things to try and justify, uh, L- Liverpool's sort of success or Liverpool's progression as a club. We've not been regarded as big spenders over the years. We've not really acted like a big club. Things have changed. We've just won the Premier League. We might be winning back-to-back Premier Leagues now. So that is a positive for me. I couldn't really care less about the transfer fee in total. I know fans will say, in terms of value for money, maybe it's too much. Maybe we should have saved it to sign another player. But when a player like Florian Wirtz, is available and is enticed by the project presented to him, you've got to do your thing and try and get this player over the line. And it looks like Liverpool have done that exactly. So it's a special day, it's a special occasion. That's why I've got John Henry on my screen. He doesn't look very pleased there because maybe someone's taken his wallet and maxed out his account there. But he's got a cigar in his hand, so he's of course in celebration mood as well. I'm so excited about this move. Honestly, this is a move that I didn't even think was realistic. Let's be honest, when I do squad analysis type of shows and I present potential targets for us, it's always players around that 30, 40, 50 million mark if we're really being ambitious there. Vance was never a target I thought could be even within Liverpool's grasp because he's always been a player that's going to hold a high value. And we haven't really spent big money over the years. Backtrack to, those years where, we sold Coutinho and then we spent that money very wisely on the likes of Van Dijk and Allison. But since then, we haven't really, moved in that manner. We've won Premier League titles. Well, we won one in 2020, and we didn't really go further and try and sign a marquee signing. When you're at the top, you should be sort of setting the example and also add a bit of fear factor to your rivals to say, look, we're going to continue our charge. This is just not a one-off. We're going to keep going. And for once, this is what it seems like. It looks like Liverpool have, you know, they've heard the voices of Liverpool fans and they've realized that this is the time to, go big. And it's a player that, look, no player is a guaranteed success, but this is a player who I genuinely believe is creme de la creme. Like he's on that wavelength. So this is a huge, huge signing for Liverpool. This is a big statement from us. And I'm overjoyed. I'm over the moon that, this player is going to join Liverpool. We've just signed Jeremy Frimpong. We've now signed his best mate in Florian Wirtz. Herkes looks like he's going to be the first signing as well. So looks like, the ball is rolling now. We're finally signing players of good quality. And I feel like this is going to be a good summer for us. It's just the beginning. Hopefully, Burton, Jav just mentioned Alfred. Maybe we can go on and sign another striker, but we'll talk about that in due course. But if you have the rival fans, they will always try to justify Liverpool's stance. Now they're going to say, "Oh, you guys always say you don't spend money. Now you're big spenders." Well, look, we're moving different now. We're back in the big leagues, so to say, when it comes to transfer market. We're moving like a big team now. We're not settling for, we're not going to the down the road to get chicken wings and chips. We're eating steak now. We're living differently. So fans are shook right now. Let's be brutally honest. City fans really, really want to invest. If you go through social media, I've seen these sort of polls that they do in physical form where they ask who would be your dream signing to Man City fans. And 9 out of 10, everyone said Florian Wirtz. But now, that player's not joining. They're telling us that he's not worth the money. And apparently Ryan Cherky is the better player. Now, I'm not gonna, downplay Ryan Cherky's quality because I've been a big fan of his, and I still am, to be fair. Florian Wirtz for me is on a different level to Ryan Cherky. Ryan Cherky still has levels to achieve in order to compete with Florian Wirtz. But I feel like Florian Wirtz, in the position that he plays as a number 10 or as an attacker, full stop, is on the verge of being, regarded as a world class player. Like he's a player that can really, challenge for Ballon d'Ors. That's the kind of level of player that we've just signed. So look, this is a monumental transfer for Liverpool, and we should be in a celebrational mood. And look, I've said it in the past. If Liverpool were to make a big signing, I will give my plaudits to the owner. So shout out to John W. Henry. He's backed the manager, and rightly so. Arne came in his first season from a foreign league, not really accustomed to English football, but in his first season, he's won the Premier League title. And then we've not even actually signed the player. I know we've got Chiesa, we signed Chiesa last summer, but that was a signing that didn't really have any impact. And it was a opportunistic signing to them having a player, available for around 10, 12 million of his quality. So that's the probably reason why we went for Chiesa in the end. But we haven't really, made big signings since Arne has come in, and it looks like, things have changed. And look, credit to these two guys here, Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes. Now, I've said a lot about Richard Hughes. I don't know how much of a role he's played in getting this deal done. I think it's more of a collaborative sort of deal that's happened amongst a number of people in the data team or the transfer committee. But we'll give him his plaudits. He's delivered a player that many of us would only dream to see seen in a Liverpool shirt. And Michael Edwards, is back again, doing what he does, signing players where we didn't think were possible, or just making astute signings. Frimpong, for me, everyone will have their reservations for him. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to be a player that will give us a different dimension in our team. And I feel like, with Florian Wirtz, and these things probably don't get spoken out too much, but you've got two good friends joining a new club together. So in terms of settling in, it shouldn't be something that takes too long. So very, very positive signs in terms of who we're signing now. And it's going to be interesting to see how Liverpool set up next season, because we predominantly played a 4-2-3-1 formation, but it's not been a formation that I feel like was a static formation. We did sort of transition to a 4-3-3 at times. During games, we played a 4-2-4 when we're trying to be a lot more on the front foot. And I feel like next season we might even see a slightly different shape altogether. So that's something we'll explore right now, just to give everyone an idea on paper how the team could set up, and hopefully we can add some more players in this window. So let me present a graphic, and then we can go through lineups and see where Florian Wirtz fits in terms of the team, and how he elevates the team even further. So let me bring up the screen for you guys, and then we can talk about it in more detail. So here we go. Where are we? There we go. So predominantly we play 4-2-3-1 formation. So as you can see, I've got Kirkers in there. I know it's not, a here we go quite yet, but it's pretty much on the verge of happening. So I've got him in the team there. And in terms of this formation, I'm hoping we sign a new striker, like Burton Jab mentioned. Alvarez would be amazing. Isak would be a dream signing of this magnitude again. But for now, we'll put Jota in the lineup. In terms of this setup, I think Florian Wirtz will possibly play from the left hand. Some will argue and say, why have we put him on the left? He's predominantly a number 10. In this kind of formation, it's not going to be a static position for Florian Wirtz. I do see him interchanging with Szoboszlai quite a bit in that kind of role. And Szoboszlai is very comfortable playing on that left-hand side. And the positive thing about this sort of setup is that you've got two countrymen on that left-hand side in Szoboszlai and Kerkez. and I'm sure they would, form a good partnership for Hungary. Suppose that actually plays a free role from that left hand side. So that might be something we'll see a lot more in Liverpool colours, I think, this season. And then you've got Florian Wirtz, being that number 10. But you might see in certain games where they switch roles and Florian Wirtz, attacks from that left hand side. Because if you watch him live or if you watch compilations, which I'm sure we have over the past few weeks, he tends to cut in from the left hand side, and that's where he's more impactful. That's why for me, I've said it before, he gives me that Coutinho vibe, and I do feel like he is that type of player. So for me, it's going to be amazing in terms of how we're going to play in this formation. I feel like if we were to sign a real gunman, then forget England. Europe will need to be worried because that would be a different kettle of fish in terms of the team that we're presenting here. And let's say if we were to play a sort of 4-3-3 formation, this might not be everyone's sort of favorite role for Florian Wirtz. Like he could play like a false nine role if we weren't able to sign a top striker. Gakpo would predominantly play on that left wing. Still question marks around Luis Diaz. I think Luis Diaz might end up leaving this summer. There's a lot of speculation with Saudi links and Barcelona as well. For now, it looks like Gakpo would be the player on that left-hand side. And Florian Wirtz, can play that false nine role. He can drop deep a little bit. And then you've got Salah and Gakpo coming a little bit inside on occasion. So that is a very interesting setup as well. The formation that I envision the team playing next season is a 4-4-2 diamond. I think that's the setup that excites me. It also means that a lot of the players are going to play in their more natural positions. So in this formation, you've got Gravenberch playing in the single pivot, slightly different to what he's done this year, but he has shown capability of playing that role. Szoboszlai on that right hand side, covering for Frimpong or for Salah on occasions, and he will be that engine on that side of the pitch. McAllister will be that deep playmaker, setting the tempo for us and making things tick from the middle of the park. And Florian Wirtz having that free role to roam around the edge of the box. And then you have Salah, who for me will be playing a bit more inside next season. That's the vision that I have right now, because you're gonna have Frimpong bombing down that right hand side. And whether Frimpong plays as a right back, as a right midfielder, or as a right winger, he plays the same way. So there's no difference stylistically in terms of what he brings to the table. Perk is a bit more of a all-round fullback where he can go on the overlap run and he will be bombing that left-hand side just like Frimpong, but he can also underlap and come a bit more infield if required. So he gives us that sort of tactical flexibility on that left-hand side. And if you've got front two of Gakpo and Salah is good, I do feel like we can upgrade that a little bit more. If we were to sign a top elite striker alongside Salah in this formation, we will be cooking next season. So this is very, very exciting. This is the formation that I'm envisioning. So feel free to drop a comment. Let me know what you see Liverpool playing next season. I feel like this could be the way we go forward. Just got a comment here from Andrew. Yo, Andrew, he says Paul Joyce and David saying not done. I think it might be just to manage the expectations as well. It's when I think when Paul Joyce makes any announcement, it's more or less a done deal from the club side where we're going to get an official news the next day. That's when Paul Joyce normally confirms these sort of deals. But I'm positive that this deal is done. I think it's only a matter of time that the club make this official and announce it. I think he's scheduled to come in for a medical, and then it will just be a formality of signing the contract because the agreement's in place. That's why we've had bids rejected, and personal terms were agreed 2 weeks ago, according to Fabrizio Romano. So if the terms are agreed, that's a done deal. The only stumbling block was probably the payment structure, how Liverpool are going to pay this transfer fee, because Bayer Leverkusen wanted a big amount. They wanted 150 million euros, which is in pounds 126 million. So they wanted to know how are we going to pay that. So my guess is that it's 100 million up top, and then the rest of the fees will be on add-ons. So look, they might not confirm that right now, but in the next 24 hours, 48 hours, I'm sure we'll get that confirmation. So Well, look, this is a celebrational day for us Liverpool fans. It's very, very positive, and I, for one, am very, very excited about this news. So feel free to drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Are you excited about this deal? Is this a deal that you know changes the outlook of Liverpool for challenging for that league title again? Because other teams are strengthening. You've got the likes of Man City, who I don't know if it's official yet, but they are on the verge of signing Reinders. Cherky looks like he's set to join as well, and Nuri was unveiled today or yesterday, I think. So he's pretty much a, s- a done sort of deal now as well. So they've definitely addressed some of the positions that were lacking in their team. Having Nuri a proper left back, but he's a very good player. He can come in field. Um, and be a bit more of a ball playing fullback for them as well. Reinders, I rate the player very, very highly. He's a player that can play in a six, as an eight, and even in a number 10. So he's going to be an interesting signing for them. And then you've got Cherky, who I really want at Liverpool. I even thought, maybe we could get Wirtz and Cherky. It's not too crazy because Cherky's valuation isn't that crazy, and they could really fit in the same team, in my opinion. But it wasn't to be. Cherky looks like he's set to go there. But I'm very positive about this move for Wirtz to Liverpool. It's exactly the player we need. And I know a lot of fans will say, well, look, the number 10 role wasn't a problem position for us because we had Szoboszlai, who was the person that would go ahead with the pressing, and he really set the tempo for us from an attacking point of view, which is very true. And I'm a big fan of Szoboszlai. If you watch my previous shows, you'll know that. And the only thing with Szoboszlai is in terms of his productivity, the ratio for goals and assists wasn't very high. So that is something I feel like Arne has actually voiced, in previous press conferences, that Szoboszlai needs to work harder on that aspect of his game. And maybe he's better playing. I feel like Szoboszlai is in a situation where he can play in different roles, and he's definitely still going to be an important player in the Liverpool setup. I can see him playing on the left wing. At times, I can see him um, playing in his traditional number 10 role, depending on the opposition. And he can even play in a double pivot. So, especially, the setup that I just showed you. Let me bring the screen back on again. Um, with this formation, if this is the formation that we play next season, I can certainly see, um, on paper, it's a 4-4-2 diamond, but I can see it being a little bit more different where you've got Frimpong literally playing as like a right winger or being very advanced, as well as Turkey. I think that's where they will be positioned from an attacking point of view. And then from a defensive point of view, you have these two centre backs split and occupying their sides of the pitch. And then you've got Gravenberch dropping deep. And then you have Szoboszlai and McAllister playing a little bit more deeper than normal, but that gives you, two players that combine very well. You've got Szoboszlai, who's an engine, and the last couple of games of the season, even though we were pretty much on cloud nine and not really taking the games seriously, there was indication that maybe Szoboszlai will be playing a deeper role. He did that for the last couple of games, and he showed great variation in his passing. And I feel like that could be a role we see him play a little bit more, a bit more of a controlled role. But I feel like it's a role that could suit his skill set very well. And when you've got a technician like Florian Wirtz ahead of him, you're not lacking that spark or that creativity from the midfield to the attack. And I feel like that's what Wirtz brings. And then you've got Salah, still a right winger to us, but can play a bit more advanced and will be playing a bit more centrally. And I feel like that will suit sort of his way of playing now. I'm not saying he's slow or anything to that nature, but I feel like you have to get the best out of Salah and play him in a different role. That's why Slot made sure that this season gone, he wasn't tracking back as much. He was more of a playmaker slash goal scorer. I think next season he'll be more focused being a goal scorer more than anything else. And Gakpo, of course, a very good player and can do a good job in that position. But I do feel like if we were able to get a real gunman in that role, if we were to, let's just do it for visual purposes. Let's say if we were to get an Isak. And I know this is a pipeline dream, but let's just, entertain ourselves for the time being. Like, that would just be sensational. And with this setup, if things don't work out, certain players can go into their old position. So, for example, if we feel like we need more players on the wide areas, then you can always have, ping pong going back to his right back position. Kirk's playing more left back, and then you've got Salah over there. You've got Isak there, and then Wirtz playing on that left, and then you've got your 4-3-3 formation right there as well. So that's something that can work as well. But I feel like, having a player of Isak's quality who is a gunman, who is going to be a killer in that box, that's definitely going to give that fear factor to our oppositions. And for me, it's the next position that I feel like we really need to prioritize. Jaquez, I know it's not official, but that move is pretty much a done deal now. The next step for me has to be the striker. The striker is a position that we need to address. And then from there onwards, I'd probably say a centre back is a role that we need to add to the team because you've got Quanso, who I feel like might leave the club, whether it's loan or on a permanent deal remains to be seen. And we can't heavily rely on Joe Gomez, who is unfortunately very injury prone. So even as a fourth choice centre back, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence going into a season with Quansah and Gomez as two of your third and fourth choice centre back. I feel like we need to add one more to that team, and then Joe Gomez can be that squad player, not fifth choice centre back, but can also cover right back and left back if required. So I really feel like we should try and go for that centre back position. I think a bonus would be a centre midfielder, but I feel like with the centre midfielder, it needs to be a specific profile player that can play in that single pivot, but not just be a destroyer. I don't want that sort of player. What I want that player to have those defensive capabilities, but also to be a deep playmaker and break the lines with their passing range. That's the type of profile I feel like we need to go for. Not a lot of players out there, but it's definitely a player, an area that we can improve by adding another player to the squad. So look, this is a very, very exciting time being a Liverpool fan. So I am very, very excited. I'm sure you guys are as well. Just going to go through some of the comments here. Um, Alternative FM internet radio bit. So he says, still final details to finish, but I'm out of time, really. That is literally all it is. So yeah, well, just waiting on that official news from the Liverpool website or Liverpool YouTube channel. And the second comment is, think it was deliberate, so it shot down cities announcing Turkey. If that is the case, that's a master stroke as well. Just like the ping pong signing, where it was announced that Trent has moved to Real Madrid officially, and a few hours later, we pretty much presented ping pong as well. So if that is the motive, then yeah, I'm all for it. To be fair, Chibuka says, "Hi, is it big up Chibuka? Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in." And Burton Jav says, "Edison, Atalanta is 40 million. He would be an interesting player. I think he would be a good addition to our squad. I just don't know if he would be. He might not even be needed in that backup role. So, for example, if we keep Endo, and I know he's not, I would actually he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I feel like he's a bit of a cult hero. So I don't know if that's the right statement there. But some fans may say that he's not adequate quality for a Gravenberch type of player because Gravenberch will offer something different to Endo. For example, Gravenberch is a master in terms of getting the ball with his back to goal and on the half turn, scouring around to make sure he can pass the ball. Endo doesn't really have that awareness when he's on the verge of receiving the ball. So that's something that he'll have to work on, I guess. But if it was Gravenberch and Endo as his backup, and then you've got Szoboszlai and McAllister, and then you've got Edison, and then you've got Jones in the mix as well. That's a solid midfield. So you know what, Atalanta, if Atalanta are willing to do that kind of business, then I think it would be a great deal. So let's see. I do like Edison. I do rate him very highly. Um, but yeah, it would be an interesting addition to the team. I wouldn't be mad about that one. Adam, big up. Adam says, do you think we should be in for Rodrigo or Leao? So I did a show yesterday about Leao, so feel free to check the channel and watch that show. I did that last night. Rodrigo is an interesting one because he's not come out publicly, but it's quite well known that he is, willing to make a move away from Real Madrid. Rodrigo would be a great signing. I don't know how much he'd cost. Probably around 70, 80 million mark, which, if we were to sell Diaz, then, you've got a like for like replacement there. He would be a good player. He would be a good signing. Now, in this formation that I have, if we let's just do it for visual purposes. If it was Rodrigo that comes in, because I feel like if it is Rodrigo, we might not get a striker, which um I still want us to get a top striker, if I'm being brutally honest. Um, so in this format, in this sort of let me say it back to the diamond, so it's a bit more clearer in terms of what I want to present. So then you've got Wirtz there and Graham McAllister and Rodrigo on that side and Salah there. That could work as well. Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at it. My reservation would be, can Rodrigo score consistent number of goals throughout the season? That would be my only concern. And of course, adaptability to the Premier League, because we've not seen him do that. But I've seen enough of him to suggest that he's a good player. I would still like us to get a proper striker. I think that's the player, or that's the missing piece of the puzzle. And that's a quote, that's a line we've used over the years a lot. I feel like in this situation, it could be the defining moment where we have a very complete team, especially this lineup. There's not a lot of weaknesses here, so I would be all for it, to be honest with you. Kieran Fletcher, big up yourself, Kieran. He says, yes, sir, Wirtz is in the building. How long did it take for you to hear about the Fabrizio? Here we go. So, Kieran, I was literally on the verge of doing a show at 10 o'clock. I was going to talk about Malik Fofana. And as I'm going online, I saw a notification. I'm thinking, let me quickly check. And I saw it's Fabrizio Romano. So I'm looking, hang on, I'm going to have to reschedule that show. And, we've got to talk about this as soon as possible. So yeah, here we are. We're talking about Florian Wirtz. We're in a celebration type of mood. I'm over the moon about this, and I think this is a game changer for Liverpool. This is the type of player that we can only dream of signing. And look, we're not playing FIFA career mode or anything of that nature. We've actually, signed a top elite player, and a player that is 22 years of age. And I still feel like he's got levels to go into. Like he's not the I'm not saying he's a raw player or anything like that. He is very accomplished, but I feel like he can go further and further and be one of the best players in world football. So, we've signed a very, very special talent, and to get a player off Bayern Munich's hands is not easy. A lot of teams have tried to do it in the past, but it looks like, Arne Slot, charmed Florian Wirtz and his parents, because his parents are his representatives, and they were blown away by the project that Arsenal has presented, and probably showed Florian Wirtz that you would have a pivotal role in terms of how we play. Because there were suggestions that Vincent Company had a similar meeting with Florian Wirtz, and he wasn't completely wowed by the project. That might be from you know, company's tactical point of view. It could also be where they already have a fantastic player in Musiala, so maybe he's having to play a different role to Musiala, and it may be something that didn't warm him very much. So, look, how it happened, I'm so excited about this signing, and yeah, very much looking forward to seeing him in Liverpool shirt, and then, of course, seeing him play for Liverpool in pre-season as well. Adam's just comment saying, Fabrizio says 7 teams was in for him. Which teams do you reckon he was talking about? Wow, 7 teams. So I think it would have been, of course, Liverpool, Man City, Bayern Munich. I think Real Madrid would definitely have gone for the charge because they've just appointed Xabi Alonso. And when there was, slight silences regarding that deal, fans were worried that maybe Real Madrid are trying to hijack that deal as well. So Real Madrid could definitely be one of the teams. Who else would PSG? But would they need a Florian Wirtz in their team? In the way they start, they don't really play with traditional number 10, so I'm not too sure about that one. Barcelona, but even but I don't know. I think these are the four teams that would make the most sense if that makes sense to us. So the other teams, you can kind of throw in the bigger. You can throw in, you can throw in PSG, Barcelona. So that's six, and then maybe one of the Italian teams. But I don't think none of them would have gone toe to toe with Liverpool in terms of trying to get this deal done over the line because we've just won the Premier League. We're playing exciting football. It's obviously a lot different to how we played under Jurgen Klopp, where it was a bit more heavy metal, a bit more end-to-end type of football. But we've still shown traits of that level of football, but also added Arne's influence in terms of calmness and composure across the field. So look, this sort of new team that we're creating right now, it's not the same team that was playing last season because if you look at our fullbacks in Robertson and Trent, and I spoke about this with JK yesterday, shout out to JK. Robertson isn't the same, attack-minded, flamboyant fullback like he was all those years ago. Of course, age has a factor, and of course, him playing so many games over the years, there's bound to be an effect on his body, and burnout will come at some stages as well. So he wasn't playing to his sort of full flow, and then you had Trent, who has been more accustomed to playing more of an inverted fullback, and end up becoming more of a ball playing fullback rather than an attack minded fullback that goes down the flank. Like he did in his early years, that's the kind of performance I expected from Trent under Armstrong, but that's not the way he played. So he's pretty much scrapped up that sort of ideas of having those type of fullbacks, and he's gone for more attack minded. Two young players in Kirkers and Frimpong who are energetic and will control those flanks. And when I say control, you're not going to get a lot of players past either of those players with their pace. And I watched the Spain and Netherlands game a couple of months ago, and Cucurella and another player, I've forgotten who it is. I think it's Fabian Ruiz. They were trying to gang up on Frimpong and they just couldn't get anywhere near him. So that's the kind of magnitude of how Frimpong will play. He might not, ping those beautiful crosses like Trent does, but he will definitely use his pace that Trent really didn't have. Trent didn't have electric pace. Frimpong does, so he's going to add a different dimension to our team, attacking that right hand side. And he's got a good crossing. It's not going to be a whipped in cross, but it'll be those cutback passes where you find your striker and then they just, smashing from like 6, 10 yards out. And that's why I really want us to sign a gunman because I feel like you need that type of player in the box to complete those chances. And you've got fullbacks like Kirkes and Frimpong who are going to whipping crosses, whether it's high crosses or low crosses, you need an accomplished striker to finish those chances. So for me, striker will definitely be the final piece of the puzzle, as I mentioned earlier on. Um, Kieran says, my dad hasn't watched many games of Bert's, and he said to me that if he would be as good as Coutinho, he'll be happy. I think he's in for a pleasant surprise. I think your dad is in for a pleasant surprise. He gives me Coutinho vibes, so that's probably the best comparison for your dad. That we're signing a player. He's pretty much like a Coutinho, but with Florian Wirtz, he's a player that's a hard worker. He definitely puts in a shift for his team as well. He's very, very smart with his dribbling. Like, you get certain players that are all tricks and flicks. He can do that. He's a nutmeg king as well, which is a joy for me because I love watching players when they produce that type of skill. But Florian Wirtz is very tactical in his dribbling. Like he doesn't just dribble for the sake of it. He's already got a picture in his mind that's two moves ahead before he's even got the ball. That's the sign of an elite and a world class player, and I feel like that's what he's going to bring to the table. So for me, this signing is going to be a game changer, and I think it's going to be a pleasant surprise for your dad and many other fans that haven't watched him that much. I watched him for Leverkusen quite a few times, especially when they, were on a roll with Xabi Alonso. And even last season, we played against him as well. Of course, he didn't have the best of games because we beat them 4-0. but when you watch his sort of individual performances, you can see the quality in the player. And yeah, we've signed a very, very special player. So I'm excited. I'm sure you are as well. And yeah, fingers crossed, we get the announcement from the Liverpool website very, very soon. It'll be interesting to see what shirt number he gets. And that announcement might be delayed because you've got the likes of Luis Diaz possibly leaving. So I can see him, taking that number 7 shirt, for example. Who else would be in Darwin Nunes? I don't want to see Wirtz having the number 9. I'm a bit more old school. I want my striker to be the number 9. So, you know, dreaming of an Isak or Alvarez type of signing, to wear that number 9 shirt. So I feel like 7 could be the number that he picks, or it could be, I think he's a player that's worn 17 and 27 in the past as well. So that could be a number that he picks, if your certain numbers aren't available. He already shut down the rumors to suggest that he was demanding for the number 10, which of course is currently owned by McAllister. And he said, "Look, I'm not that type of person. I don't want to just steal someone's shirt number like that." So yeah, I'm very excited about this signing, and I've seen if you watched his game for Germany the other day against Portugal, like he likes to get stuck in a bit as well, and he showed it to Bruno Fernandes and Bernardo Silva. He's not even an officially a Liverpool player at that time, and he's already winning us over with those kind of antics. So I'm very, very pleased about the signing. This signing for me is a game changer. It really, really is. And if we can just get that top striker or attacker, because I feel like Liverpool will need to look at the market because there aren't a lot of strikers out there, unfortunately, in my opinion, that will elevate this team. Like, if we wanted a number 10, and if I did a poll a few weeks ago before the Wirtz rumors was circling, and I said, who would be a dream number 10? I think many of us would have said Wirtz. Number 9, I think, will be a split between Isak and Alvarez. But if you look at outside of those two players, there aren't a lot of players that, excite me or that I feel like will change the game for us. Like, if you go down the order, you've got the likes of Osimhen, who I think would be a good striker in our team, but I don't know in terms of his situation because it looks like he's on the verge of going Saudi. Then next day you're hearing he's not, so I don't know what his future is. I think Galatasaray are trying to get him on a permanent deal because he had such a fantastic loan spell there as well. Eucharist is an interesting one, but he's a bit of a polarizing type of player because none of the big clubs are trying to sign him. The only team that are, I think, in talks or have shown an indication that they want to sign the player is Manchester United, and really know their track record where, um, you know, they pretty much sign names rather than the players that fit their style of play or fit their system. So, make of that what you will. But after that, there aren't many strikers. If there's a name that I'm missing, feel free to drop a comment and let me know. I want us to sign an accomplished striker, an established striker that will come in and hit the ground running. I don't really want us to go and splash the cash on someone that is a project player who's a bit raw in front of goal. I want someone that's accomplished in that position. So I can't think of any other names that would really appeal to me. Harry Kane was mentioned yesterday on the show. That would be an amazing signing. Of course, it would be. I think he's got a release clause of £50 million. So having him alongside Salah is, yeah, is FIFA career mode stuff again. But I think in terms of like the finances involved, in terms of what he earns about 400K a week. So I'm not sure if Liverpool are trying to break the wage structure again. We're probably doing it right now. The Florian Wirtz deal is definitely, the one that's going to be the big signing. Whether we can do another one remains to be seen. But I'm excited, nonetheless. But I'm really, really hoping and praying that we do get a number 9 as well. Kieran's second comment is it's important to play Wirtz in his best position. We still need a number 9. I agree. That's why I feel like in this team, he's not going to be a number 10 all the time, in my opinion. It would depend on how we set up and who we're facing as well. I see him mixing up between the number 10 role, and I can see him playing on the left hand side quite a bit as well. pretty much how Coutinho was set up in our team. Coutinho didn't have a specific role in the team. He had a free role when he played at number 10. But even when he played from the left, he cut in quite a bit as well. So I think he's gonna be that type of player within our starting lineup. So exciting stuff, nonetheless. Adam, the comment says, can Liverpool afford Isak or Alvarez after the Wirtz transfer? Jack would probably say no, that we probably couldn't afford another transfer of this ilk in the same window. But I didn't think we were able to get this sort of signing in the first place. So we might be surprised for a second time round. So who knows at this stage? But if we were to do it, then we'll be set for years. And if we were to able to address these positions in this window, I wouldn't even have too much issue of us not signing players for like the next 2 or 3 windows because it looks like we have a complete squad right now. Of course, there's always few refinements here and there, or people depart, then you have to replace them as well. But I don't know. I'm hoping and dreaming that we can, so we'll just have to wait and see on that one. Kieran says, do you think we can sell Jota and Nunes and buy just one striker? Would we have enough in that position? I don't think we'll sell both, if I'm being brutally honest. I can see us selling Nunes and possibly keeping Jota. Nunes, I think the fee that we're, trying to get from interested clubs is around £70 million. So that money can be used on an Ekitike, I guess that type of striker. Even though I rate Ekitike, for me, if we were to sign a project player, let's say Liverpool weren't able to get an Isak on Alvarez, I think Ekitike will be the one that, if he was in this team and is able to, hit the ground running, then he's able to get to that level in a year or two in time, in my opinion. But then the big question is, would it not make sense for Liverpool to hold out and try and get Isak maybe, next summer? I'm saying next summer, I'm saying 2026. If you look at Michael Edwards' track record as well, if he doesn't get his target, he does tend to wait for that person whenever they come available. So I think if that is the case where we can't get our prime target, because we don't know if it's Isak or if it's Alvarez, but if we can't get our prime target, I would be content with having Diaz staying at the club for another year and we sell him on next summer in 2026 and have him and Gakpo occupying that left-hand side. But then I would probably utilize Diaz more up top, more than anything else, in my opinion. And then have Wirtz playing on that left-hand side a bit more. So that would be my thinking. Or you can go on and sign a Rodrigo who I've got in the current lineup as well. And that could be a player that's flexible. He can play on the left, right, can play up top as well. So it'll be interesting what Liverpool do next. I think whoever we sign after Wirtz and Kerkez, if it's going to be an attacker, it will definitely give us an idea into how the team will set up. If it's a forward like Rodrigo, then I expect to play the formation I have on the screen right now, playing a two-man strike force. If it's a gunman, then we can definitely switch up with a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, and can even play a 4-4-2 diamond at times as well. So that's what I feel like if we have that real striker in our team, then we can play these different formations and it fits the team to the T. So let's see how it goes. But I'm very, very excited of, the prospect of us having Wirtz in the team and potentially having, you know, a new striker in the ranks as well. But we'll wait until that time comes. Mark, big up you, Mark, for your comment. He says, "Is it done?" Because some journals are saying not done. So, previous comment mentioned that that it hasn't been confirmed by Joyce or David Ornstein, and it's been confirmed by Fabrizio Romano. So, with these journalists, you always have to take this news with a pinch of salt, I guess. But I do feel like, you know, he's seems to have the scoop on this transfer more than the other journalists. And with Paul Joyce, he normally confirms things when it's completely done, and it's where the next day is when Liverpool announce it. So because the medical hasn't been completed yet, that's why Joyce hasn't confirmed the deal. So the news is that a deal has been agreed because we have had 3 bids rejected. So we're just waiting for that next step, which is the medical and signing the contract, and then that's it. So we're pretty much 95% there. Um, so I think it's just a formality of getting the things over the line, and hopefully we'll see him holding a Liverpool shirt, and we'll see a sign-on vlog on the Liverpool YouTube channel very very soon as well. Um, for instance, how much do you think we can get for Nunes? It depends who's the interested club, because if it's a Saudi team, I think we can milk it a little bit. I think we can get it around 70 million pounds. I think that would be the range that we'd want for him. If it's a European team, I think you've even quoted it below. So you've said 40 million. I think that would be the ball mark if it's a European team. So he's got interest from Atletico Madrid, from what I remember. There was interest from Napoli in Serie A as well. So that would be the fee that I think we can get realistically from Europe. I don't see no one else paying over the odds. And you know, the Saudi Pro League is a different ball game in comparison to European teams, because Saudi are willing to pay over the odds to sign a player. They're willing to pay extra money to get that player over the line, because for that league, if you're able to acquire a quality player from Europe, then it just in heightens their league even further, and there'll be more eyes on their league, and the matches there as well. So that's why they're willing to pay, over the odds for certain players. And I think with Nunes, they'll be willing to pay 70, 80 million. And it's the same with Luis Diaz. They're willing to spend that kind of money on him as well. So remains to be seen what happens with Darwin Nunes. There was an inkling a couple of days ago that he might even stay, which doesn't excite me one bit. I feel like, the time has come for both player and the club to part ways. And 'cause I do feel like there is a talented player in Darwin Núñez. I just don't think he's good enough for this Liverpool team, and I don't think his skill set aligns with the Premier League. I don't feel like he has that calmness in front of goal that we need from our striker. And I feel like if he goes over to a league in La Liga or Serie A, or even the Portuguese league, if he makes a return there, then that definitely can be the type of league that suits his way of playing. So I think he can definitely do well elsewhere, but I don't think it's at the Premier League, and I don't think it's at Liverpool at all. Um, and Kieran says, yeah, I think Saudi were willing to pay Diaz for a much higher fee in Barcelona. So that rumor was quite interesting, because I think the Saudi teams have shown strong interest for Diaz for the last few months, and then all of a sudden, Barcelona made the official approach to Liverpool to get his signature. But I think they offered us a stupid amount, like 40 million, including add-ons, which is outrageous, because we paid about 45 million for him a few years ago. So, you're not going to match us with the same price that we paid. This player has elevated, he has improved since we bought him. So his fee has definitely risen. His stock is a lot higher than that valuation there. So for me, we basically communicated to the press that we're not willing to sell the player now. I don't think that is the final stance. I think that's just the stance to suggest that, look, Barcelona, if you want to sign the player, you're gonna have to pay the odds. You're gonna have to match a figure close to Saudis in order to get his services. Otherwise, we're gonna try our best to sell him to Saudi. And if Diaz doesn't want to move to Saudi, then I can see him staying at Liverpool for another season, and the next season we'll make that move for him going forward. So for me, if we get a silly offer like 40 million again for Diaz, needs to be rejected. I'd rather have Diaz stay, because replacing Diaz is not going to be an easy thing to do, in my opinion. I think you're going to have to spend probably the same amount of money to get an adequate replacement. If you've got Rodrigo, he's going to be a similar valuation as well. So for me, Liverpool have to be very smart in terms of how they maneuver this transfer regarding Diaz. No point of just shipping him, to another team just for the sake of it. He has been one of our top players this season, sorry. And, you know, he definitely helped with our campaign, because he was asked to play up top, which he hasn't done in Liverpool colours. and I feel like he did a great job. I think he was one of our best attackers at most points this season. So yeah, let's see what happens. But it's going to be a big summer regarding Luis Diaz. Um, Kieran's asked, yeah, I heard about the Barcelona offer. Who do you think we technically they're trying to pick us for mugs, that's what they're trying to do. But yeah, I'm glad that we rebuffed that approach straight away and still angry about us still angry about us scamming them for Coutinho. Definitely are, to be honest with you, because I don't think we've done any business since then. So we didn't really scam them. That was the valuation of the player. Well, we did in hindsight, 'cause obviously his career's gone downhill. But I think for Coutinho, he made the wrong decision to leave Liverpool. He was playing at a very high level. He was, loved by the fans, and I feel like he was just on the verge of becoming real world class at the time. And he went over to Barcelona, where I think he assumed that he was going to be playing alongside Neymar. So there was a lot of pressure when Coutinho went there because I think Iniesta had just left for Japan, and he was he was kind of earmarked as his successor, which Iniesta has been one of the best midfielders for the last years and years. So that's never going to be easy talk. But then Neymar left as well, so he ended up being regarded as Neymar's replacement. And in that team, it didn't really work well for him. And unfortunately, his career's gone slightly downhill. He's still owned by Aston Villa, which I didn't realize until a few weeks ago. So yeah, you know how things have changed for certain players when they make that one bad move, and unfortunately, it's affected his career. So, but look, onwards and upwards in terms of Liverpool. Barca, I don't think will be willing to spend a big amount on Diaz. They can't afford him. They're already under great financial restraints. So it'll be interesting to see how much they're willing to spend for Diaz. But the best case scenario will be for Diaz to move over to Saudi. But then maybe Diaz isn't ready to go to Saudi because you know he's still 28. Will be 29. I think in January is his birthday. So he's still playing at a very prime level. So he still feels like he has a lot to offer to play in Europe. But you can look at your career as well. I think one of the reasons why he is leaving is due to finances, where he's earning 50K a week. It's not really the amount that justifies his involvement in the team. He's got squad players that are earning more than him. Nathaniel Phillips, who's still in our books, earns more than Luis Diaz. He earns 60K. Diaz earns 50K. So that's it's a slap in the face there when you see it. So for me, he's entitled to have a new contract, but I think due to his age and the way we operate with, certain players reaching an age group, and I know Van Dijk and Salah are probably exempt in this situation, but generally we don't give big contracts to players of that age in terms of, the late 20s. So that's why for me it's going to be very interesting what we do with Diaz, because if he was to leave, I've earmarked Malik Fofana as a potential player that comes into the squad, but he's not ready to come into his team, in my opinion. So I would want a Rodrigo or a Rafael. I would want that caliber of a player to come into the team, a player that can play left wing, that can also, play up top, whether it's in a strike force between two players or if it's within a front three. Um, I think we need to find a replacement for Diaz in terms of quality, but in terms of a positional sense as well, because Diaz was predominantly a left winger, but over the years he's had to play at right wing at times, especially when Salah wasn't around, and then he's also played up top quite a lot for us last season. So got to find adequate quality to replace Diaz, in my opinion. Um, Kieran says on the topic of Saudi, what's your thoughts on Saudi teams missing out on a lot of players this transfer window? Is their pool diminishing? It could be. I saw an interview of Ivan Toney saying that, the league is a lot tougher than what people, you know, say out loud, thinking it's like a farmers league or something of that nature. Um, I think people just understand that, when you go to Saudi, it's very unlikely a player goes to Saudi and comes back to Europe. If you're at an age group where, you've still got your best years ahead of you, Saudi wouldn't be the best sort of move to make for their careers because you'll earn a great paycheck, of course you will, but your legacy might be a little bit tarnished. So maybe the pull isn't there, but it only takes one or two players to move over there, and then everything transforms. So I know they're trying very, very hard to get Vinicius Junior. I don't think that will happen, but if that move was to happen, then it's a snowball effect. You're going to see more players going over there. So I think they will sign good level quality players like your Nunes or Diaz, like that kind of caliber. But I don't think it'll be one or two. I think quite a few will end up going there. So it just remains to be seen in terms of who ends up there. But for Liverpool, hopefully Saudi teams can help us out because a couple of years ago they helped us out with Henderson and Fabinho. Because I don't think we were expecting to get anything for those two players, and end up happening for us. So maybe they can do us another favor and try and make that happen for us again. I just got another comment here from EFP draft footage bill. So he said no players come back to Europe after that China league project did they, and lots went there too. Yeah, not many came back to. I remember, is it Polina who used to play for Tottenham? He came back and ended up at Barcelona. But other than that, not many came. And if they did come back, they didn't, enheighten their careers any further. It was just been where they maybe joined a team that were established, became squad players, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, no, you're right. After that project, but that project kind of fell to pieces after a few years. The Saudi one, there's a lot of money there, so they can kind of continue this sort of way of acquiring big players and trying to add more limelight to that league. So I don't think they will fizzle out anytime soon. But I'm hoping from a Liverpool point of view, we can sell some players and get the right finances in order for us to get our targets as well. Comment from Kieran says, I've heard some rumors about Leon joining us, which I highly doubt, by the way. But surely if we sign him, his work rate must be an issue. We can't have two wingers not tracking back. That would be interesting. And I think that is the question mark around Rafael Leao because, for me, when he's on his, best form, he's unplayable. Like he's elite, in terms of his dribbling and how he plays. But there are question marks in regards to his consistency and maybe that work rate. But I feel like, you know, Arnold Slot will definitely have things, ready or behind him to make sure that he's covered in certain areas. But if he wants to play at an elite level, he's going to have to change that perception and he's going to have to work hard for the team. So in terms of what he brings onto the pitch, if Armstrong has belief that he can really tune it into him and make him more of a team player, then I think Rafa Leao would cook in our team. So he's a player that I do like. I know some fans don't like him at all. I rate Rafael Leao, and if he was to join, I would be very pleased. Probably not as as happy as I am today with the vert still, but it wouldn't be too far off to be honest. Um, EFP John Paul says, I think we go for Rodrigo too. We bid for him last summer or in the winter. It came out later on in the year after the bid. I think we want him, and if he comes to the Premier League, we will beat Arsenal to him. Yeah, the Arsenal one is the strong rumor right now. He would be a good addition to the team. Let's not beat around the bush because their left flank is poor right now. And also, he's a player that can play on the right hand side, even though I don't think that's his favorite role. But if they needed cover for Saka, he has that flexibility to do that. Uh, I hope we do go in for Rodrigo. Rodrigo was very close to signing for Liverpool when he was in Brazil. I think he was around 16, 17 at the time. I believe we agreed a deal of around 3 million for him, but he wanted to, I think, continue his studies there and he wasn't quite ready to make the move to Europe. And then I think one season after that, he ended up moving to Real Madrid. So he was a player that we've definitely had strong interest in, and I think that was Michael Edwards was around that time, trying to get that deal there. So I'm sure that Michael Edwards still has those statistics of the player, and he's probably kept an eye on him over the years. So there's definitely interest in Rodrigo, and it appears to be that he's ready to make the move away from Real Madrid. So if Liverpool come knocking, I'm not just saying biasly because I'm a Liverpool fan, but I think he'd favour a move to Liverpool more than Arsenal. But then again, some players might prefer to live in London, and that can be a defining factor. I'm sure you guys will remember we tried to sign Alexis Sanchez to replace Luis Suarez, and he ended up joining Arsenal because he wanted to live in London. So, fortunately, that could be the motive for certain players. But you just have to look at the way Liverpool are set up in terms of the club, the culture, the city, the fans, the people of Liverpool. There's a lot to really embody when you join this team. So hopefully, Arsenal is on the phone to him and he can wow him with the project that he did with Wirtz and get him on board. And look, us signing Florian Wirtz could actually help us sign a Rodrigo because signing Wirtz is a statement of intent from Liverpool. We've not done that sort of transfer over the years. But this move would definitely shook the airwaves and, you know, make players alert to be like, "Do you know what? Liverpool might be in business now. They really are going for it." So if they add Wirtz to the mix, and if we approach Rodrigo and say, "Look, you Wirtz in the same team alongside Salah and another striker, hopefully, you guys are cooking." So we can definitely present that project with more weight now, even though I don't think it needs to be enlightened in that way. But with Wirtz in the mix as well, it only helps our case further. So if there is genuine interest, I really hope that we can get Rodrigo because I do think he's a good player, and it could be another move where can definitely elevate us even further. Um, Second comment is we bid the current asking price for Rodrigo last summer window. I think it was 85. I think you mean million there. You forgot the end there, but yeah, if I could, I'll pay for that right now. I think it was 85 million. Then that we quietly bid. I think we'll go for him if Diaz goes. We are waiting. That makes sense. To be fair, that's why I don't see us being linked with an attacker or striker right now because we're waiting on Diaz to leave and we're waiting for Darwin Nunes to leave. So with Diaz, if he leaves first, then you're gonna hear Rodrigo or Leao, those type of profile players being linked to the club a bit more heavily. And when Nunes leaves, you'll probably get some more links to strikers as well. The striker one for me, I'm wishing it's Isak, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to steal John Henry's wallet again if we were to sign him. Arsenal are the smoke screen. I think I really hope so. I really hope they are. Um, and if your full comment is yes, it's an Edwards thing. This I think we will be talking to Madrid, but operating quietly. See if we can approach. Then it will go public, and we will end up in the window with him. I hope so. We do like to move quietly with this move. I think the Verts one has been earmarked for quite a bit, only because of the magnitude of the signing. The Rodrigo one, I think once there are serious discussions, we'll hear it a bit more further. So yeah, let's see what happens. If Rodrigo joins, if that's the lineup right there on screen that we will be seeing in the Premier League next season, wow, that's something. So might be back-to-back titles. Let's say it like that. Um, the other comment is Liverpool City Centre looks immense at the minute. It really does. I have a ton of videos in all of the place with my cameras. I think it's a nice city to come to. I was at the parade not so long ago, so yeah, it's a great. Obviously, I went there, with 1.5 million people there, so it was a fantastic occasion. But yeah, in terms of the city, yeah, it's the people of Liverpool are very lovely as well. So there's so much positives in terms of joining a club like Liverpool from a football point of view, but in terms of lifestyle as well, because when you're in London, you can get distracted by the glitz and the glamour of the city as well, whereas Liverpool's a bit more quieter. If you're a family man, you can be in your own surroundings and not get, you know, distracted by that sort of environment. So for me, it's an appealing project for any striker, and I'm not just saying it from a biased point of view. Kieran says I could stay here all night and chat with you guys, but I need to get some sleep. I really enjoy speaking to someone who knows Liverpool and football well in general. Keep it up. Good night, guys. Big up yourself, Kieran. Thank you for your kind words and thank you for tuning in as well. Um, EFP Drone Footage says, I agree for Talk podcast. Be on yourself. He said, I will sub. I think you are talking more form to the head than all these other YouTubers who play up to things way too much. Well, big up yourself. Thank you for your kind words there. And your other comment is, I think I want to keep the midfield from last year and add Wirtz in attack. That team is best suited as Dom needs to stay in. We are champs. He just helped us with win number 20 and people write him off. Diaz is great too. I couldn't agree with that comment even more further than that because I feel like people just underestimate Szoboszlai's contribution to the team last year. You know, he was the player that really set the tempo in terms of our pressing and led the attack very, very well. Yes, his GA wasn't very high, but he still contributed. You know, he really did. So I think if you add Verts to the mix, you've got two players that can interchange, and I feel like they will actually form a good partnership on the pitch. Because Verts can go on the left, and then Sobota can go on the middle, and vice versa. I feel like Sobota is going to play a very important role. Whether he's playing on the number 10 role or on the left. 'Cause I can see him playing on the left quite a bit, if I'm being honest with you. I know a lot of content creators haven't mentioned that because I've seen it across YouTube that, people have written him off and think he's going to be more of a bench player. I think he's going to play on the left more than the center, in my opinion, just because of what I saw in his final season at Red Bull Leipzig. He played predominantly on the left. For Hungary, if you watch him for Hungary, he has a bit more of a free role on that left hand side, but he does play from that position. So for me, he's definitely got great ability, great energy. That goes without saying. He's a he's a workhorse on that pitch, but he's got quality, he's got end product, and he's a great technical player as well. So for me, whether he plays the number 10 or on the left, or can play in that double pivot as well. We saw him do it in the last couple of games of the season, and I feel like it definitely brought out a different perspective of Szoboszlai because he's showing his passing range a lot more. He had a bit more time on the ball, so he's able to spray passes around. I feel like people only realize that he's actually a good passer of the ball, which for me doesn't make sense. But everyone's entitled to their opinion. But Szoboszlai will definitely have a very big role to play in this Liverpool team. And Diaz, for me, I would be disappointed to see Diaz leave, but I understand why he would leave this summer. It's more of a contractual slash financial reason that he's leaving, and I don't want it to come across that he's all about money or anything like that. I think he deserves better than what he's earning at Liverpool. Some will argue and say, well, look, when he joined Liverpool from Porto, he was on 10, 20K, and then when he came to Liverpool, we tripled his salary to an extent. But that was quite a number of years ago. Things have changed. He's been one of our mainstay left wingers in the team. And last season, he played a big role in terms of us winning the league title. So he was on the verge of having a contract extension, I think, 2, 3 years ago. But due to the injury he picked up, it wasn't offered to him again. So for me, he's a good player. He's a player that is very important to the team. So if we were to replace him, we have to replace him with the likes of a Rodrigo or a Rafael. That type of caliber of a player is the player that I believe we need in our team. And I'd be sad to see him leave, if I'm being honest. 'Cause people are thinking that it's going to be very easy to replace him. I don't think that's the case. I really don't. I'd like to be proven wrong, but I don't really see it in that way. It would depend who that player comes in to replace him. If it's a Barcola, then I'm laughing because Barcola is a player that I really, really rate, but it's not a player that I think is easy to attain at this stage. So let's see what happens. Szoboszlai will have a big role in the team, in my opinion. If Diaz stays, I'll be happy. Even if it's for one more season and then he departs in summer 2026, I'm all for that as well because I don't want us to sell Diaz and then sign a player who I don't think is adequate quality, in my opinion. So, but let's see. Let's see what happens with the two. Um, and your comment, didn't we get Dom from Germany too? Grab as well. All the people saying German league exports are crap are liars too. Haaland came from Germany. All the players came from Germany. Bellingham came from Germany. He's killing at Real Madrid. So no, I disagree with that in terms of I think in terms of the league, it's just because Bayern Munich pretty much run that league, and Bayern Leverkusen, of course, won the league title very recently, but there aren't many teams that challenge these two teams, if that makes sense. Dortmund are a very strong team there as well, but just lack that extra quality to go past the line, in my opinion. So, but no, it looks like we're shopping in Germany. You know, we've done it like you mentioned, Gravenberch, Dominic Szoboszlai, Haaland came from that league, and we were signing Wirtz from there. So, you know, we might sign. You know, we were linked to Schlotterbeck not so long ago, so you never know. Diaz, 23, GA last season, 13 goals in Prem, 5 in other comps, best living in the league, aside from Gakpo, who have the two, we have the two best. Yeah, I completely agree with you that one, because if you look at the league, there aren't many good left wingers. I think one player that stood out for me, but didn't play left wing every game was Cunha. And fortunately, he's going over to United. I don't know why he's going there. That's a terrible move, if I'm being honest with you. And he showed, you know, numbers for player that's playing at a lesser team where you know you're not going to get a lot of chances. But in terms of left winger, you know, it's an area of the league that is quite weak, and which is strange because over the years it's always been you know one of the strong positions in the league. No one really has a standout player in that position, apart from Liverpool. Like you said, I think we have two of the best in Gakpo and Diaz. Now, if Diaz was to leave, then if we get Rodrigo, then you know that's another statement there. So let's see what happens with Diaz. Hat-trick versus Leverkusen with a squeezing finish. That was a great finish. I do remember that. A Colombian fighter. South Americans are street fighters on the fields. You actually need them for that. Still, 100%. That's something you can't question Luis Diaz in terms of his effort and what he brings to the table. He is a player that always works hard. And that's what I find a little bit annoying when, you know, he gets criticized because people just look at stats when it suits them in terms of numbers. You know, like, oh, he hasn't scored for a number period of games and you know he's terrible, blah blah blah. You know, you have to look at what he produced on the pitch. He might not have produced the final pass for the goal, but he definitely was part of the build-up play, if that makes sense. So you have to really watch the games to know how much of a contributor he is to the way we play and to the team. So yeah, he will be a miss if he does get sold, in my opinion. Diaz is 10 times better than the hunchback of Martinelli. Is not fit to lace Diaz's boots. Do you know what's funny with Martinelli? I think a few years ago, I did a show with Tariq, shout out to Tariq, and we did a combined 11. And I think that was a time when Martinelli had a great season for Arsenal. And I was like, "Do you know what? I think Martinelli might just be ahead of Diaz." But since then, it's gone completely downhill. And Diaz is by far the better player, without a shadow of doubt. Um, you said that I like João Pedro's touch and hold up play. He's 23. He could be Brazil number 9 in a year if we buy him. He's not a dream target, but a clever one. We tracked him all last year. People overlooked that too. He's definitely one that will fall for me in that project player bracket. The positive thing about signing João Pedro is that he's Premier League proven. So that wouldn't feel like a gamble as such. The only gamble would be like, does he fit into the way we play? I don't think we can rule out a false nine, if I'm being brutally honest with you, because the number 9 market is obsolete. There aren't a lot of options out there. And maybe a João Pedro could be the type of signing we end up getting. He wouldn't be a signing that I would be, you know, as excited as I am today for with the Vert still. But I'll be like, you know what? I understand that signing. I think it would be a smart signing, but let's see. I'm still hopeful of signing, you know, a Isak or Alvarez, but you know, I think I'm clutching it to be honest with you. Um, yes, number clutching idiots clutching numbers more than seeing of life. Fair enough. Um, Martinelli was good when he was 18. He was raw, but he has not advanced one bit under Arteta. No Arsenal players have. In fact, the whole squad has gone sideways. Odegaard has fell off a cliff. Yeah, Odegaard was for me probably one of the flop of the seasons last year. He was MIA. He really was. And it's an interesting assessment because there aren't a lot of players that I feel like that have really elevated the game. Some might say, you know, Declan Rice, but I feel like Declan Rice was already really good at West Ham. I just think he's continued. So he's made slight progression. Who else has made progression? I don't know if progression would be the right word to describe, but I know, like, for example, Saliba and Gabriel, they formed a great partnership. Have they progressed? It is a debate. Um, No, I feel like those players have just continued their good form on us, but he hasn't elevated one player of like being good to like world class. Like he hasn't done that kind of elevation. But I don't think, me personally, I don't think Arteta is the elite coach that he thinks he is in his head, or Arsenal fans will tell. Or I guess some Arsenal fans. I don't think everyone agrees with that. So, but who knows? Who knows in terms of what they do? But yeah, I think we have to be very smart with the Diaz move in terms of who we get to replace him because it looks like he might be leaving. Um, but yeah, we'll see what happens with regards to that. Um, and that is the last comment. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning, everyone. I'm going to give everyone a shout out that has been involved today. Shout out to Graham. Shout out to Bert and Jaff. Shout out to Andrew Wright. Shout out to Alternative FM Internet Radio. Shout out to Chibuke. Shout out to Adam. Shout out to Kieran. Shout out to Mark. Shout out to uh, EFP Drone Footage. Appreciate your comments and appreciate your engagement tonight, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. I'm literally one subscriber away from 500. So if you haven't subscribed, please, 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 I would really appreciate if you can hit that subscribe button. For us YouTube content creators, I don't like calling myself a YouTuber, but a YouTube content creator, 500 subs is a big milestone, especially when you're growing your channel. So if that can happen tonight, I'll be very grateful. I'll be celebrating twice. I'll be celebrating 500 subs as well as the Florian Wirtz deal. So if you can make that happen for me, I would really appreciate that. In terms of upcoming content, I will be doing a show tomorrow. I was scheduled to do it today, but the breaking news had to take over, unfortunately. So I will be doing a player profile episode assessing Malik Fofana to see if he would be a good fit for Liverpool. I'll also be doing another show where I will have my sporting director hat on, where I will analyze the squad. I will present who I think should be sold, who should be bought using realistic sort of transfer fees in terms of I'll use certain websites for their valuation, but we'll try and keep it as realistic as possible and see if I can sign players based on the money that we've made and all that sort of stuff. So that'll be a fun, interesting show. We'll probably do that on Thursday, and then on Friday we'll do another episode of Transfer Talk. So we'll round up all of the latest transfers surrounding Liverpool on that show. And then, yeah, feel free to get involved in the live chat. And then, yeah, we'll try and make that an engaging show as well. So that is it for tonight, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. Stay safe. Verts is a Liverpool player. Great news for us. Big up yourself, everyone. Hope you have a nice evening, and I'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.